Okay, this is a formative assessment, an assessment for learning. The general overview is it's a formative assessment task and tool for first year associate degree hospitality management students. The course is food and beverage cost control. The unit is the phases of the cost control cycle, applying the 4 steps in the cost control cycle. So this is an overview of how to use the assessment as well as how to use the peer and self-assessment tool that have been designed to use along with the assessment. And so one of the first things that the lecturer will look at is where the learners are. Where are they going and how to get them there. Where the learners are, we may engage in activities such as questioning. We share the learning expectations. So where are they going? So this is where we also look at the objectives, the learning objectives, and how to get them there. And so the assessment as well as the tool is designed to provide that constructive feedback to assist the learner in improving and to be successful in getting there. This particular assessment has 5 objectives. The objectives may vary depending on the unit, so it doesn't necessarily have to be 5 objectives. And these 5 objectives, however, they have incorporated Bloom's taxonomy, the verbs to describe what the learners are expected to achieve by the end of the course. Because of course it is a teacher guided, yes, but learner centered assessment, and so the activities have also been so developed. The assessment as well as the peer and self-assessment tool is guided by the 10 principles of assessment. So these were taken into consideration when the assessment was being designed. So one of the first things the lecturer has to do is to clarify the criteria, which I said earlier, for the learners to be successful. The assessment task has to be made clear, very clear to the learners to ensure that they are aware of where they're going. So in terms of this particular assessment, the task is in groups of 3. The students will organize a field trip in collaboration with the lecturer as well as the hotel property of their choice, and based on a checklist that they would have developed while doing the activities that preceded the actual assessment. They would have developed this checklist of cost control standards and standard procedures. While touring the property, they will compare their observation with the checklist that they would have developed in the areas of the phases of the cost control cycle, what they would have observed, the cost control procedures that are employed at each phase, and the roles of the persons that are actually assigned. The information that is gathered, the students will upload a video to the e-portfolio. They will also design a poster depicting hotel or food service operations cost control, do's and don'ts, because we also want to ensure that the students are adequately utilizing media and technology in their presentations and assessments. And so also in the discussion forum, they will give an analysis of any deviations that they would have noted, deviations from the standard cost control operating procedures discussed in the unit, or that they would have learned to be the correct way to do things, and they would have seen deviations based on their observations. So the forum is where the learner comes now to make recommendations for the property's improvement, and also to comment on the video of their peers to give that particular feedback. I captured this picture on one of those field trips prior to this course, which we're currently looking at incorporating more media and technology into it. Right, so there are 8 activities based on this assessment and the tool. There are 8 specific activities that will lead to the formative assessment assigned, and will ensure that the students, or provide everything that the students will need to be successful in this assessment. So these 8 activities, they flow really easily, really simple, and they are progressive. Where the learner will complete a self-scored activity in Google Classroom is where the perception of challenge analysis that the tool will be used, and further explanation is given of that, because in the actual tool, assessment tool, it's a traffic light self and peer assessment tool, and so the perception of challenge analysis is combined with traffic light assessment here in this Excel spreadsheet. And so the student will, from this drop down list where the traffic lights are, the student will select the color. Green means I understand. Amber means I don't understand. Well, amber means I am uncertain, and red means I don't understand. The five learning objectives are listed in the first column, and each learning objectives have two statements that the students will use to determine if they understand, if they don't understand, or if they are uncertain. And so the learning objectives are integrated into this self and peer assessment tools. The self and peer assessment tool, because the learner will share this particular tool and the results of the assessment with a partner, and the partner will provide feedback. The learner will then input the improvement plans, and there's also provision made for the lecturer's notes. So the learner continues to be guided by the constructive feedback. The reason for this particular assessment is that the assessment is designed to facilitate the learning process by enabling the lecturer to analyze the progress that learners have made and make adjustments accordingly. So, it's an assessment for learning. The assessment gives the learner a first-hand experience of the learning objectives, or to have a better understanding of how to get to where they need to get to. So that's why that particular assessment was actually chosen. Cost control as an academic discipline in hospitality program should reflect the industry practices in the design of the course and the lesson plan. The assessment choice will give students a first-hand experience of actual hotel practices, where the learners will be able to relate to the literature and be able to apply knowledge gained after completing the course. The traffic light assessment tool was adopted and adapted in order to integrate the peer assessment aspect into the tool. It is combined with the aspects of the perception of challenge tool in an effort to have learners indicate understanding of the objectives, as well as to comment in regards to how learning is actually perceived. So the assessment tool is designed to give learners the opportunity to assess one's own learning and make adjustments accordingly. So it allows learners to learn from each other, and it also gives the lecturer the opportunity to do an in-depth statistical analysis of individuals as well as groups. So the lecturer may group the responses by colors and or other categories based on desired objectives of the analysis and make improvements accordingly. In terms of the assessment task, another alternative considered was to have a guest speaker from different hotel properties. However, it was determined that having the students visiting would have provided the exposure that would have facilitated the learning better, or that would have bringing the students to the property would have given them the first-hand experience that the guest speaker would be able to take to the classroom itself. Other alternatives in terms of the assessment tools that I consider the rubrics, exit cards, and a few others. Some challenges faced: what tools to adopt, integrating the tool in the design of the assessment to align tools with learning goals, the attempt to actually design the template with the drop-down menu with the traffic lights, and selecting tools that are easily accessible with user-friendly interface are some of the designs. The insights in terms of the decision making, in the end, it is the management of the knowledge that needed to be prioritized. How to overcome the challenges became clearer after shortlisting the tools that were deemed as most suitable to achieve learning objectives. There are also institutions who would have adopted assessment tools and provided research findings. These findings are informative and aided the decision process. So, again, just to wrap up, the peer and self-assessment strategy that is employed, the teachers share learning expectations and success criteria with the learner, and then there are forum discussion groups guided by the teacher, question and answer. There's also a Kahoot game to have evidence of learning. The teacher gives feedback during discussion sessions, and learners also learn from each other, give feedback to each other. Learners will use a variation of the perception of challenge tool from the traffic lights toolkit for self and peer assessment, and the teacher will give evaluation, will do an evaluation and give constructive feedback that will enable the learner to improve and to get where the learner desires to be in terms of learning.